Firstly, I would like to join my party colleagues in welcoming this bill to the floor of the House, and I would also like to express my support of the amendments tabled by Deputy Louise O'Reilly to the bill. I'm going to take this opportunity to raise the issue of small and medium enterprises in my home county of Clare. Tourism is a large seasonal employer in Clare and in particular in West Clare. Many of these businesses are small family-run operations and operate mainly around the summer months when the industry is at its busiest. This, coupled with many self-employed trade persons and transportation companies and other micro-businesses, are struggling to cope as the country reopens post-COVID-19. As you are aware, Minister, the tourism sector across the Isle has taken a major blow this year due to COVID-19 and the travel restrictions. This has therefore put between 6,000 and up to 8,000 seasonal jobs at risk in County Clare alone. This, along with Monday's announcement that Shannon Airport is looking for redundancies and pay cuts of their staff, along with the imminent closure of Moneypoint Power Station, has placed a very grey cloud over the county right now, and the prospects of large-scale unemployment in the county is a real possibility. A recent survey carried out by the Ennis Chamber of Commerce right in the middle of the pandemic found some startling numbers for the SME sector in County Clare. One of the major issues for businesses was the lack of support that they were receiving from their insurance providers. This will not be a surprise to this House, as it has been raised on several occasions. 48% of respondents in that survey said no when asked the question, has your insurance company been cooperative during this crisis? 48%. That is just not good enough. When asked to predict their projected losses going forward, 33% of the respondents said that their business losses will be between 25 and 50%, with a further 31% saying it will be between 50 and 70%. I've been told stories of grant applications being refused because they came in an hour after the deadline on a Friday evening. Minister, these SMEs in many cases have reduced their staffing costs to save money. This often means that admin staff are still on furlough, and therefore the business owner is working full days before having to head home to complete the paperwork later in the evening. This is why these applications need to be simple and easy to access and complete. They need to be free from red tape, and they cannot have long processing times. While it is welcome that Microfinance Ireland has been processing applications during this crisis, we need to ensure that this continues. The loans via the microfinance are calculated on interest rates of between 5.5% and 6.5%. How is this going to be of assistance to any SME that is facing major issues with cash flow is astonishing. Bank of Ireland, for example, are advertising loans to SMEs for a much better rate of 5.48% in some cases. Again, while these loans are seen to be an easier route towards finance compared to the banks, these rates of interest rates are not competitive. This is why we need to ensure that the rates are kept as low as possible to ensure that these companies can afford to repay without taking on any more crippling finance they may not be able to afford down the line. At a time when the government can borrow at 0% interest and sometimes even at negative interest rates, I think it is time that we use this access to low interest rates so that we can pass this on to our SMEs at the most affordable rate possible. It's safe to say that this is a major difference of repayment amounts for a company that is already struggling to stay afloat. In a small business, that could be the difference between hiring back that part-time student or not. And as much as anyone, students are dependent on these posts over the summer months to help support them over the college year. Again, these are yet another group that are forgotten about. For example, Canada announced at the end of April an emergency student benefit for those students that have seen summer work dry up and do not qualify for their version of our PUP. While it was welcome that students who have part-time jobs could qualify for the PUP, this does not cover all. So this is yet another group in our society that have been forgotten about during this pandemic. And while I acknowledge the Taoiseach's comments on youth unemployment, we must ensure that our young people do not get left behind as we re-image post-COVID-19. Some self-employed persons like taxi drivers, plumbers, carpenters, bus and taxi operators found themselves out of work, many of them for the first time in their lives, and started to draw the pup. Now as the country reopens, they are seeing themselves being offered small jobs here and there. The problem with these people, Minister, is that even to take one day's work, you must sign off on the pup, and therefore it is not practical for them to do so. Being self-employed means that they are not entitled to claim casual job seekers, which would allow them to sign off for the days that they got work. With so many people out of work or on reduced wages or hours upon returning to work, there is a lot of hesitation to complete home improvement works. So for the tradespeople, this reduced workload could continue for some time to come. These people are also being forgotten. They are families, they are contemplating whether it is a good idea or a bad idea to sign off and take the risk. They are worrying what will happen at the end of August when the pup stops. They have other halves who cannot go back to work because they don't have the childcare facilities available to them to do so, should both be needed to work on the same day. Many of these family-run companies have been around for years. Many of them have weathered the financial crisis of the 80s and again at the crash of the Celtic Tiger in 2008. But they have never experienced something like this, the uncertainty, the lack of knowing what will or will not happen yet. I would also call on this government to put in place a real strong stimulus package to allow SMEs to bounce back post-COVID-19. This pack needs to be bold, it needs to be radical, and it needs to be something that will work. These small and medium enterprises are the backbone of our economy. Recent OECD reports suggest that some 92% of businesses in this state have less than 10 employees. That clearly shows how the micro business are the heart of our economy. Over 70% of our workforce is employed by SMEs. If that does not show the need for a real stimulus package, I don't know what does. As discussed by my colleague, Deputy O'Reilly, on this bill yesterday, we are proposing that repayments on these loans be paused for at least 12 months. Businesses that were struggling with cash flow problems even before the onset of COVID-19 need these breaks to be viable. We need to follow suit with other countries like the UK that is supplying similar stimulus packages at more affordable rates of repayments. We need to support these businesses, not cripple them with further debt as they try to reopen. Gurmagad.